This is the Newsload.
Hi, I'm Carrie Anne Stevenson, and I'm here with Newsload, Carrie, Season 6. And I am so beyond excited to be able to interview today Levi MacDougall. Hello, Levi.
Wow. Hi. It's Levi MacDougall.
McDougal.
But hey, how you doing?
Sorry.
You are off to a killer start.
Thank you. I try. So you're in LA right now?
I'm in LA. Yeah. I've been living down here about 15 years now.
15 years. That's amazing. I believe we started out at Humber College together.
Yeah, that's right. Were you in the 2-year program there?
I was part of the annoying 18-year-old kids.
I think I know as many of the people from the 2-year now as the one. Yeah, we had our own annoying above 18ers in the post-grad one too. So.
But Debra DiGiovanni, she's doing so well.
She's doing great. She just did Tonight Show and then just got nominated. She lives like a few blocks away from me here.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's so wonderful.
It's nice.
She's so funny. Do you guys still stay in touch?
Yeah. We did a show together with a bunch of Canadians with Ryan Belville as well.
Ryan Belville. Oh.
Yeah. Who did. So Debra did the year before me at Humber. She came out a year before. And then Ryan and I moved out from Calgary, 4 of us, Christian Reimer, Paul Shook, and Ryan, moved from Loose Moose in Calgary to do the same year at Humber.
Phenomenal. And are you working on the Conan O'Brien show right now?
I was on Conan, yeah. The show wrapped, and then we were in development for an HBO thing that's just kind of it's never fully gone away, but it's just been on hold with stuff. I think their podcast empire took over.
Cool. What was the interview process to be able to get on the Conan show?
I didn't end up doing an interview in person. It's all packet stuff, right? So first they reach out to a bunch of people, so you submit a packet. And it's usually just like a 1-page breakdown. It's like 3 examples of, an in-studio sketch, 3 examples of something live, like a remote, what they call it when he's like out and about. And then they had, I think most of the ones I've had will kind of leave it open-ended at the end. They're like anything else that, gives us your voice and examples. So I think some people will just send links to stuff they've done. I know stand-ups, they'll usually look up your stuff anyways once you're in kind of the finals. But yeah, and then like people who've done essays or any stuff like that, it's pretty open. It's more just to get a sense of your like sensibility if you'd be a fit.
And you had a pretty wonderful comedy special on Comedy Now and such, so that probably helped with the process.
That helped to stand it. Yeah, I don't know if they sat through all 47 minutes of it, but yeah, I had that, and then I had some shorter sets that I think I'd filmed in LA that were on YouTube and stuff that helped.
And how did you deal with the pressure of writing sketches and such, like new material all the time for the show?
Oh, you just panic all the time. It's easy. You just panic all the time. No, I mean, certainly that, especially when you're going in new, you feel like your days are numbered. And then as you get stuff on and as people laugh at jokes you've made in the room, you slowly over the course of years start to feel like maybe they won't fire me tomorrow. But it's also a very collaborative writers group. Like there's some shows that will, play off pitting groups of people against each other, stuff from what I've heard. And I think because Conan, they'd been doing the show for so long with so many staffers who'd been, doing it for 20 some years, it was a good vibe. The writers were like not trying to cut people down. It was a pretty secure group, or just everyone's equally insecure. So no one's trying to, but it was a good place, like very early on, to just poke your head in to another writer's office and say, hey, is this something, or what do you think of this? It's a pretty good group.
And is Conan like chill when he's not on?
Terrible monster. You're not recording it, right? He's great. He is very quick. One of, I think, like the fastest improvisers I've ever been around. Um, and like, yeah, very rapid fire, funny, very experienced with comedy bits. So it makes for a fun environment once you're in it and once you feel like you can hold your own, or at least, have good days. Because it's motivating to want to excite someone that's like, okay, it's like having a sharp audience. You're like, okay, what can I do that'll surprise them?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
he's, yeah.
Yeah, and he seems like I love when Martin Short makes fun of him about him being so pale and everything. And he genuinely laughs, like he enjoys when it's really funny.
Yeah, I think he's also surrounded himself with people who feel safe, like cutting him down a notch, comedically. Like I think coming from a writing background, and I'm sure it's also just his sensibility, he was very aware of kind of getting in a bubble too much and having, just yes people around him all the time. So he had like his head writers and stuff. It was a pretty safe environment, I think, for him to be called on stuff. And I think it from pretty early on, my experience with him is it really did feel like the funniest joke wins. Like very early on when I started, we did our first Comic Con shows. We went to San Diego Comic Con for a week every year. But when I first started, it was about 4 months before our very first time doing that. And there were a few of the writers who were more into like comic book stuff and not so much like sports world. They would usually travel for sports stuff or like Super Bowl or NBA finals. And so with the Comic Con stuff, I remember they reached out to the few of us that were like, do you know about this? So we would meet and there was a lot of promo stuff like Entertainment Weekly quizzes and stuff, where it's like 7 or 8 of us in Conan's office going through 20 questions and just throwing out answers. And that was that was probably the first time we were actually pitching with Conan in a room, because usually he's not in the writer's room with us when we're pitching ideas, thank God. Um, but just him behind one of his podiums pitching and him pitching jokes. It was very fun. And it was nice to see that like when someone had a joke that beat it, there was like no ego. It was like, oh yeah, okay, that's the one. It was just like whatever made the best work or the best show or the best thing. Yeah, it was a good vibe. It was a very good vibe.
Very, very cool. Is there a
Yeah.
difference you find writing stand-up jokes for yourself compared to writing sketches and jokes for the show?
Yeah, I think because I mainly started well, I started in stand up and sketch, and even sketch, I was in a 3-person group, and we tended to write on our own and then bring it to the group. And then stand up, I was, of course, writing on my own. And I think being on this show, especially the pace of it, even other TV stuff I'd been on hadn't been daily in this way. And you quickly have to start relying on other writers, or you're getting pulled into their stuff because they need help with something. Um, and I think you quickly find out like, oh, it's better. It's always better collaborating with people because your ideas are always there, all the ones you come up with on your own, and you don't ever have to take, nothing's ever going to detract. No one's ever trying to make anything less funny. So it makes you less precious about your work. It really, I think, quickly gets you to a place where it's like, oh, the best joke wins. If I come up with it, that would be awesome. And the thing is, over time, everyone is going to have their moments, but it takes the pressure off. And then I think you're more creative because you don't feel like you're competing with everybody. It really feels like everyone's in it together, especially when it's such a tight deadline. And when you're doing like 4 shows a week, 5 shows a week, you just can't be a perfectionist about stuff. You get really good about good enough about if you're editing something and they're like, we have half an hour on something you could easily spend 5 more hours on, but you just have to get better at being like, oh, this is good and this is as good as we can get it right now. And you start to make bigger changes as opposed to just tweaking, because and then you can tweak stuff to death. You can take out what was funny about it. So I think it saves you from yourself sometimes when you have a hard deadline like that. It would be great if it was possible to impose that on myself when I didn't have someone else breathing down my neck.
Right? The deadlines are what, force the, product to be finished no matter what.
Yeah. It's so helpful. Even stand up, the most productive I ever was in stand up is when I had regular shows scheduled, because then it eliminates the like, do I feel like it or do I not? That's out the way. You're just like, it doesn't matter. I have to do a show. So I'm going to be ready for the show.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Living in LA, do you find yourself getting starstruck often? And this is a two-part question. Do you find any celebrities that you run into, it's easier to run into them at, like, say, a Starbucks coffee shop, or like literally being able to shake their hand at a show?
Um, I don't know. I think in my day-to-day life, I'm not really, it's pretty rare to see like celebrities out. I mean, the people I see most of it are probably comics. It's the one thing that my girlfriend's an actor, and we've talked about this where even like singing, acting, you're never going to be at an open mic, or, say a place where people are just doing a monologue in a cafe for actors and have, Meryl Streep or someone who's considered at the top of their game pop in. And stand up is like that regularly. It's one of the early, there used to be a show called Meltdown at a comic book store up on Sunset, which is pretty close to me. And one of the shows I was doing, oh, this is from Meltdown. That was
Oh,
a
cool.
thing they did when they stopped. And I'm selling these posters. I'll put a link in the description after it. But one of the shows I was doing, Robin Williams came and had been out front with his daughter looking at comics, and one of the hosts very nicely was like, I'm so sorry, we don't want to bother you, but we do have a fun little show in the back. If you want to do a set, totally understandable. If you don't, you know. And he came back, and his daughter was leaving with a friend anyway. He's like, yeah, I'll hang out. So he came, hung out in the green room, went on stage, which was, he kind of, snuck into the green room, which is like a tiny area with like 10 comics who were all very excited, but like keeping their shit together. And when either Jonah or Camille, maybe it was both, they were the hosts, said that Robin Williams was there, it was such a great reaction from the crowd of like, okay. Because it was like a show that would bring characters up and, you know, and seeing the crowd try to process that he'd actually dropped in. But like, I don't think there's an equivalent to that in like singing or acting. It's just the play, or like, how many people have been in a place in LA when like Chappelle pops by or Sarah Silverman comes by. Like it just happens so regularly. We're pretty lucky in that. And that in LA, it's nice too. I think New York too, that if it happens frequently enough, you can see those people have off nights, which is so helpful, I think, for comics to watch because you get so used to just thinking people at the top of the game are always in that place. And I think they are consistently better or maybe just more comfortable with themselves. So it doesn't, it gets to a place where they're never bombing the way someone who's never done it is bombed. But yeah, just the exposure to that was nice.
It is definitely very refreshing when you watch, like an amazing performer not do well. But also, someone like Jason Rouse, for instance, who I adore. He comes to Yuck Yucks London, and because he is such a niche hard rock comic, kind of metal,
Hmm.
sometimes he doesn't fill the room. And like, I love and adore him, but he's not everybody's cup of tea, kind of thing. So
That's interesting. Are you based in London now?
yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember when he would do like the Super Club in Toronto, and it was always packed. He was probably one of the first people I saw just like destroy in a way I hadn't seen before.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. He's still doing it, and he's still killing, and I love seeing him. Do you when you were filming the comedy special for Comedy Now, what was the process? Did you have Comedy Now approach you and give you 9 months to prepare, kind of thing?
They, I think, approached me after I did the Tim Sims award show. That would have been the first televised stand-up thing I did, with Debra, DiGiovanni, and Ryan. And then off of the Tim Sims, part of the prize was doing a spot on Mike Bullard. So I did like a 5 or 6 minute stand-up spot on Bullard. And then after that, the Comedy Now people who I'd gotten to know at like the back of the Rivoli and stuff for Alt Dot approached me and said, "Hey, we're doing our new season. You know, would you be interested in a spot?" And I knew enough to say yes, even though I probably didn't feel ready. And the nice thing is they left it open. They said, "We're doing half an hour." They initially just said, "Would you want to do a half hour?" And then as we got talking, they kind of very casually like, by the way, if you want to go for an hour, you can try for it. And if you don't, we'll just cut it down to half an hour. So it seemed worth at least a shot. So I did every joke that I'd probably ever done on stage at that point that I felt could get a laugh, and did exactly. I think I needed 47 or 48 minutes, whatever the cutoff was for their hour. Did that. And then so they put it out as an hour. But it happened, I mean, pretty organically, because there was a bit of a ramp up from doing the Tim Sims Award show and some other TV stuff to them in the back. But it was also, just stuff where the more shows I did, the more you're running into people, which is kind of how it works everywhere.
Did you find you made more money in your commercials than you did in stand-up?
No, stand-up was very lucrative at the time, which just wasn't. I made probably no money in stand-up. Yeah, I think that was the reason that it didn't feel. I think coming in to stand-up, just wanting to do stand-up, initially the stigma against commercials, which now seems so silly because anyone is doing anything just to make money. But initially it was like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to be seen as commercial thing. And then quickly seeing probably comics I liked doing commercials, hearing that it was enough to kind of, if you could string them along, it would help pay the rent, especially in the beginning when stand-up's paying so little. But of course, even like established comics doing commercial stuff, it just helps so much. So yeah, that really helped get me through like a few years at least with and then I did them after moving to LA. I would still fly back and do them.
Yeah, it was really wonderful to see the series. It was almost like a soap opera, all the different scenarios you would get into.
With the Rogers one. Yeah. It was such a silly thing. I think we did 23 of them, which stretched over like maybe 7 or 8 years at least. And initially it was just a one-off. It didn't start as a series. And then the second one was just like, we're going to try a second one. So it never felt, for the first 2 years we did them, they were pretty spaced out. So it never felt like something you could rely on. And then they started doing like a few a year, and it was so helpful because there's just no money in stand-up. There just wasn't. And I think Bullet is not like there weren't TV spots anymore. There just wasn't a showcase for it.
Well, do you have anything coming up that the audience should know about? Check out your website, your Instagram.
Yeah, I will get my Instagram updated more. No, we're in a really down time here, so I'm just writing and pitching stuff. So hopefully shows that come out of that will be the next thing. And then I'm doing more stand-up. I'm going back and forth between Vancouver and LA more, so I'll just keep putting that on Instagram. But yeah, just working on TV stuff that'll hopefully be in the near future.
Fantastic. Well, Levi MacDougall, I'm so beyond excited to be able to have been able to chat with you today. And if there's just one last thing I can ask of you, to say it loud, say it proud, I love Newsload.
Okay, I can do that. I love Newsload.
Thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
This is the Newsload.